laugh fluttered through his chest and stole his breath. Oh, how she used to laugh. He should have cherished every one of them when he'd had the opportunity.
"Then you'll just have to haunt me,"
he said, lifting his head to stare into her eyes.
"When I said forever, I meant forever. I'll love you forever, Sarah, whether you're here with me or not."
"You're too young to not love again. Too passionate to not share that with another. Promise me you'll find someone." He swallowed and shook his head again. He'd made a lot of promises to Sarah in the few short years they'd had together, but replacing her was one he couldn't make. "Stubborn," she said, closing her eyes with a shallow sigh. It was the last word she ever said to him. Chapter 1. Kellen rubbed at the borrowed watch around his wrist, watching the motion so he'd keep his eyes off the pretty blonde near the back of the bus. Sarah had been haunting Kellen for 5 years now. Apparently she was better at keeping her promises than he was at keeping his. Even now, when he'd found a woman who might be worth the torment of his soul, Sarah watched him. Well, Lindsay, not Sarah, he reminded himself for the umpteenth time, was actually watching Owen at the moment. But Kellen could feel Sarah's disdain chewing at his insides. "You broke your promise to me, Kellen. You did it with another woman." It. Oh, he'd done it, all right, and he'd like to do it again. But he wasn't sure he was capable, not with her voice flitting through his conscience. His conscience wasn't giving him grief about Lindsay. The down-on-her-luck groupie wasn't carrying Kellen's child. That was one benefit of being abstinent all those years. No surprise baby showing up on his tour bus step. His conscience was talking about someone else. Someone spectacular and exciting and, well, perfect. He'd done it with a woman he'd just met. A woman who was sitting right beside him. A woman who should have heeded his warning and run far, far away from his messed-up emotional ties. A woman, unlike Sarah, who wouldn't be embarrassed to call it sex or making love, or maybe even fucking. And he was convinced that his broken promise to Sarah was why Lindsay was there. He knew in his soul that Sarah was there to torment him through Lindsay. Lindsay, so obviously pregnant and resembling Sarah so closely, he couldn't even look at her without guilt tearing into his gut. Any rational man would know that the beautiful young woman couldn't be a reincarnation of his lost love. Lindsay couldn't have been born more than a few years after Sarah. So even if he had believed in reincarnation, Lindsay couldn't possibly be his Sarah reborn. But Kellen wasn't feeling rational at the moment. What man could be rational when trapped on a tour bus with the ghost he'd slighted? Lindsay coughed, and his eyes automatically sought her. A mistake. God, they looked so much alike. The same angelic blue eyes, the exact same shade of golden blonde hair, long and with just enough waviness to make the bottom edge curl outward. The same heart-shaped face, same wide mouth, same skin tone, same soft jawline. Lindsay's uncanny resemblance to Sarah had Kellen uptight, holding his body so stiff that he ached. And why else would Lindsay, not Sarah, show up now, when Kellen had brought a woman on tour with him for the first time? When he'd stuck his dick inside another woman after 5 years of abstinence? He couldn't even deny he felt something for Dawn, something deeper than lust. And he'd even come inside her. He hadn't looked at Dawn when he'd blown his load, and his promises to Sarah had echoed through his thoughts the entire time he'd betrayed her. But that didn't matter. Why else would Lindsay turn up pregnant now, not 6 months ago? Why now? He knew exactly why. Sarah was there to haunt him, and not just in his thoughts this time, but in a physical form. Kellen didn't believe in coincidence. He believed in fate, in destiny. Lindsay turning up now was not a coincidence. She was a flesh-and-blood reminder of his promises to Sarah.